All right, looks like it's right at about 1 o'clock. I have quite a few folks on the line. Hopefully everyone can hear me. My name is Mark Hansen. I am a principal planner here at Mid-America Regional Council. Most of you that have applied for funding
Hello, Meg.
with us, I would ask everybody at this point to go ahead and, and mute. So a couple things here as we get started. If you all could go into kind of the chat window and enter your name in there so that we keep an accurate record of who's attended today. And also, if you could all make sure, I've muted everybody right now, but if you could make sure that you stay on mute, that would be great. We are recording this particular session as well, so that we'll post this to the application website. So if you need to come back to it, or I want to show something in it to somebody who was not able to attend today, that is available for you as well. And so again, this is our kind of application workshop for our suballocated programs call for projects. This is applicable to the second phase of the application, and this is essentially better known as our old application process. So the first phase was kind of a new thing that we did, and this phase 2 is more of what you're used to in previous years. Today, our agenda for today will start, obviously, we're not going to go around the room or go around the call here and do introductions or anything like that. That's not been working so well in other places. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Again, I'm Mark Hansen with Mid-America Regional Council. I'm kind of your one-stop shop for questions about anything that goes on with this. And if I don't know the answer to it, certainly I will be able to get you connected to the right people. And today we're going to kind of go over the programming process. We're going to go over some policy guidance and information that can help you along with your application. We'll talk about the application itself and some instructions with that, and hopefully we'll get the virtual web meeting here working well enough that we can kind of actually go into the application website and kind of walk through things in there as well. So that's kind of where we are. So let's get started with our programming process overview. And some of this information, some of you may have already seen, but it never hurts to kind of go back over this. We are working on programming funding under this call for projects for 3 separate programs. They are the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, the Surface Transportation Program, or the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. There's a lot of different names for it. In the past, we've generally just referred to it as STP, and we'll continue to do that for the most part. And then also the Surface Transportation Program set aside for our Transportation Alternatives Program. You can see kind of all of the funding that's available by all the programs out there. We're totaling up to $32.6 million or so in Kansas, and just a little better than, I believe, $50 million there in Missouri. All of these funding amounts are based on kind of 2020's obligation limitations provided to us by our departments of transportation. They are up until kind of the end of things, they are subject to change, although these are fairly stable estimates based on historical amounts that we've been programming. And I should remind you all at this point, most of you are familiar with this, but these are all reimbursement programs. So there is not going to be money kind of fronted to you. Essentially, you are constructing the project and submitting your invoices to the relevant administering agency, whether that be KDOT, MoDOT, or the Federal Transit Administration, for reimbursement on these projects. So important piece of information to have kind of up front there, that these are all reimbursement programs. Under CMAQ, many of you are familiar that we break CMAQ down into a variety of what we call pots of funding that are available. You can see the percentages that each of the 4 different pots there get. There are also 3 regional projects that are taken off of the top, and those are funded at $927,000 in each state over the 2-year period that we're programming in federal fiscal years 2023 and 2024. Those 3 projects our Marks Air Quality Public Education Program, the Rideshare Program, and our Regional Active Transportation Planning and Promotion Program as well. And then we take what's remaining there and we break it up into the 4 pots. So alternative fuel, diesel retrofit, outreach, and other get 11% of the funds, and you can see the applicable amounts in Kansas and Missouri. Bicycle pedestrian has 15% of the funds, and then traffic flow and transit each take 37% of the funding. Under the STP program, this is the largest of the 3 programs and the most flexible, and so we do see the most applications come in under this particular program. You'll note in Missouri, there is a kind of a funding taken off of the top for the Buck O'Neill Bridge project, which reduces the amount anticipated available for programming in Missouri, and also money taken off of the top for Operation Greenlight. This is supporting regional operations of that particular program, and you can see the amounts available in both Kansas and Missouri. And this will be the last round in which the set aside kind of for the Buck O'Neill Bridge is taken off the top. And so the funding amounts will return a little bit more to normal in upcoming rounds following this particular round of programming. I also did want to touch on the committee assignments that will be programming these dollars. So STP is handled by our Kansas and Missouri STP priorities committees. CMAQ gets divided because of the different pots of funding. CMAQ gets divided amongst a handful of committees. So the alternative fuel, diesel retrofit, and outreach and other categories of CMAQ are handled by Air Quality Forum. Bicycle pedestrian applications for CMAQ are handled by our Active Transportation Programming Committee. Traffic flow by those STP priorities committees again, and the transit component of CMAQ is programmed through our Regional Transit Coordinating Council. We also do have transportation alternatives funds, and those are funded through our Active Transportation Programming Committee. So where are we at in the general kind of timeline of our programming process? We kicked this whole process off back at the end of April with the first step pre-application call for projects. We have moved kind of steadily on through the first step process, and we have completed that now, and comments and feedback are available to applicants, and I will show you later in the presentation here how to access those comments. But do know that staff is always available to provide you with technical and policy support. And so if you're interested in discussing that pre-application or ways you might strengthen your application based on the information provided, do feel free to reach out to us, and we will happily work with you on that. But you can see we launched our second step, the technical application as we're calling it, on Monday, August 3rd. We obviously are here on the 6th of August doing our evaluation workshop, and we will have the application open through the month of August, closing on September 4th. So happy Labor Day to everybody. You get to finish your applications and take off for the long weekend. Through September 2020, we'll be doing staff review and scoring of these projects. And then kicking off in October and November, we'll be doing our work with our programming committees to review all the projects and set about determining a prioritization for the projects. And then in November and December, we'll be taking all of this through our policy committees, which include the Air Quality Forum, the Total Transportation Policy Committee, and the MARC Board of Directors. And finally, everything will wrap up in January of 2021 with the final approval of those programming recommendations, and they will be incorporated into our Transportation Improvement Program at that point. And then you are free to start working with the relevant administering agency in order to get your project development activities underway. And so we're all told in this particular timeline, we are about 3 or 4 months behind where we would typically be, but we don't necessarily see any huge impacts to things since we are a handful of years out with programming. So we'll keep everybody trying to on schedule as much as possible. So that's kind of our first piece of it. So that's kind of an overview of the programming process, how much is available, and the upcoming steps that we'll be going through. We did want to include a section on policy guidance and information for you as well. Many of you are aware that we recently completed work on our new Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Connected KC 2050. And so this particular document should be providing you with a lot of guidance about how you move forward and what kinds of projects you submitted under that first portion of the application. And referring back to the policies and strategies in there can help you as you move through the remainder of the application, tying your project to kind of the goals and objectives of Connected KC 2050. So this long-range transportation plan for the region establishes a regional vision for the transportation system. It develops policies and strategies for implementing that vision, which is where the projects that you're submitting at this point kind of come in contact with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And we also identify regionally significant projects that correspond with the regional vision for transportation. Kind of very briefly, at a glance, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan outlines 5 kind of policy goals of where we're at and what we want to see. We want to see access to opportunity, public health and safety, a healthy environment, a variety of transportation choices, as well as supporting the economic vitality of the region through transportation. It also provides some strategies about how we'll get there, including kind of focusing on centers and corridors. That particular strategy is not necessarily new. So the last update to our previous Metropolitan Transportation Plan placed a heavy emphasis on centers and corridors, and Connected KC 2050 continues that. We'll promote climate protection and resilience. We'll find new funding sources, which becomes more important seemingly by the day. We'll work hard to prioritize the investments so that we're impacting the most kind of goal areas we can with our investments. And we'll also leverage data and technology in the region to make better informed choices and develop better projects. The website for Connected KC 2050, and I should note that the Metropolitan Transportation Plan lives as a website. There's no real a paper document to it or PDF document to it, but the website does have a couple of special areas of attention that you may want to pay attention to. If your project is listed in Connected KC 2050 or has a supporting program in the plan, you can find that within Connected KC 2050. There are also kind of advanced strategies and project elements, some of which we've included here. Some of those are new, some are not. But obviously, complete streets we've been talking about for quite some time, safety countermeasures, but newer kinds of things that we're getting into are more ties to our planning sustainable places and clean air action plans and efforts related to reducing urban heat islands and helping with floods and droughts. There is a new kind of renewed emphasis on the congestion management toolbox, and I think some of you probably saw that in our phase 1 application. And also there is available to you a report on transportation congestion and reliability in Kansas City, which may help you as you complete your application as well. So there's a lot of good information on the Connected KC 2050 website. One of the other things we like to make folks aware of that they need to provide is kind of identification of the person in responsible charge. This helps with kind of timely and efficient project delivery, and this person must be identified for each application that is submitted. That person should be knowledgeable of the federal aid process, familiar with state project letting procedures, responsible for project administration, agreements, signatures, and billing, and is expected to be a full-time public employee or a public official, even when consultants are providing the engineering services to you. Can be a little bit confusing for some folks who are not as familiar with the federal aid process, and certainly more information can be found on the local public agency sections of the KDOT and MoDOT websites, and you are certainly free to reach out to your contacts at KDOT and MoDOT regarding this. If you need help in determining a contact to reach out to regarding any of this, or anything along the way, you don't know who you should be talking to at KDOT or MoDOT, please feel free to let me know, and we will get you connected to the right folks. I did want to note, probably one of the least popular portions of this, our project fee. Many of you are aware that MARC collects a project fee on all of the transportation funds that are programmed through MARC programming processes. This year, the fee has been raised to 1% of federal funds awarded. It had been previously 1/2 of 1%. So the non-refundable fee is charged to the project sponsor, and we assess them kind of on an annual basis, reflecting all our programming work completed in the previous year. Fees from this call for projects will be invoiced next year in 2021. We do still provide a number of resources for applicants. We like to try and make it so that you don't necessarily have to go outside of the MARC website in order to find any of the resources that you need in order to do your application. From the technical side, we do provide kind of application templates, which are on their way. Those have been sent to our Public Affairs Department for posting to the application website, so those should be available to you fairly soon. We provide a GIS mapping tool where you can see kind of where your project is and turn layers on and off in there to help you as you answer questions. We provide access to population and employment forecasts, as well as things like the natural resources inventory. Again, all of these together help you along the way in terms of developing your application. There are also quite a few state and federal resources available to you as you develop your application. Those include our local public agency policies and procedures, again, available through the websites at KDOT and MoDOT. And we do have links to those available. There are also program fact sheets about all of these different funding programs available through the Federal Highway Administration's website, and we can those are all kind of pointed out to you as well, and so we can get you access to those information pieces as well. We'll step on now through kind of the application. I've put up there the website where you can kind of go to access the application, and you'll kind of land on that funding opportunities page, and there'll be a kind of link to access the member portal as you kind of scroll down the page a little bit. This still remains a 5-step process, essentially. There's no longer really a need to register anymore, since you had to complete phase 1 in order to have access to phase 2. Essentially, you'll just need to log back in. And if you forget your login information, there is a process by which you can get your password back and reset it as well. So essentially, you need to log in, and then there are kind of 4 pieces to the application. There's a general set of project questions that all applicants must answer. There are category-specific ones based on kind of how you have categorized your project, whether that be a roadway operations project, or perhaps it might be facilities for non-motorized transportation. Whichever one you select, you'll get questions that are more tailored to that particular category. We also will be asking for financial information and also providing you with an opportunity to add some supporting documentation by uploading a variety of different documents as you choose at the end of the application. I should note in here that mostly in the general project information category, when you log back in, you'll see a number of fields are kind of populated already. These are your answers from the phase 1 application will be pre-populated into the phase 2 application, so you can see your responses. If you need to edit those responses in any way, there is an opportunity for you to do that as well. So we're attempting to, we've cut out a lot of questions, removed questions from phase 2 up into phase 1. So we're trying to remove the redundancy for you as much as we can. So I'm not going to commit that we've gotten rid of all of it, but we've done quite a bit in terms of getting some of those duplicate questions removed out of the application. Again, when you hit into the MARC member portal, You'll log in using your previously established credentials, and there is a forgot password function that you can use to reset your password. It does work. It works quite well. I've had to use it a number of different times throughout this process. Also, when you log in, you'll see kind of the list of projects that you submitted under your login information. And there's a button there that allows you to see your pre-application. There's also another one that allows you to see the comments from staff and planning committees related to your application submittal. And then there's a button that says Continue Application. And that is the one you'll choose to continue working on your application and move through the phase 2 set of questions as you work to complete your application. Also at the top, you'll notice a button that says Report Issue. This is kind of we started this feature with the phase 1 application, and we're continuing on with it here in phase 2. This is the easiest and most direct route for you to report a problem that you're having with the application, and it goes directly to the IT staff behind the scenes, and they can get started working on resolving your issue. Other folks are also notified that there are problems or that you're having an issue, and we can reach out if we need more information. That is the fastest and easiest way to do it. Of course, some of you will kind of land on sending emails to me or other various MARC staff members. You may continue to do that. It just might take us a little bit longer in order to resolve your issue, as we become somewhat of a middleman in that kind of perspective. But if you're having a technical issue with the application itself, do feel free to use that Report Issue button first, as it will be your fastest method of getting that resolved. A few other kind of important details about here. As in previous iterations of the calls for projects that we've done, you can continue to edit and update your submitted projects all the way until the deadline. Even if you've stepped through all the pages and it says the application is complete, you can keep going back and editing as many times as you would like, all the way up until the deadline. And the deadline for the applications and any changes that you're submitting is Friday, September 4th at 4:00 p.m. You want to make sure you have everything completed by then. After having been involved in these processes for 15 plus years, the biggest piece of advice I can give to you in terms of working through your applications is to leave no field blank. Always make sure to have everything filled out. And secondly, do not wait until the last day to try and do it. These applications have been traditionally been very stable applications, but if there are problems to be had, they will be had on Friday, September 4th at 3:00 in the afternoon. So don't wait until the last second in order to get your applications done, if at all possible. If you have questions regarding kind of policy issues, programming policies, please direct those to Ron Acapul, our Director of Transportation and Environment here at MARC. His email address is there on the screen. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with MARC. If you're having questions about the online application form, please use the Report Issue button. You may also contact me, and my contact information is shown there at the bottom of the screen. That's pretty much all I had as far as walking through the background of how this might work. I did want to take a step outside of the application if we can get if I can figure out the kind of the GoToMeeting system of doing that and show you. We'll log into the actual application and we'll kind of step through the test application so you can get a feel for how the process will work. But I don't see any. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. I don't see any questions really in there. There's not. It's probably fairly obvious at this point to those of you that have been through this process before, have attended one of these application workshops. There's not a lot of new information that we're sharing with you. This is kind of the traditional funding application that we've used, and it remains relatively unchanged from the previous year. As I mentioned previously, the largest change to it is essentially the removal of as many questions that were redundant as possible. And so we're hoping to lighten the load on you a little bit by doing that. So again, I'm not seeing any questions in here, but certainly I'm going to attempt now to try and stop sharing this particular screen and get into the website. So hang on one second. All right, so we are here. This is the connectedkc.org/funding page that I mentioned earlier. This is kind of the starting point for everything. Gives a little bit of background about the 3 programs. You can click on any one of these links and get taken to kind of a guidebook related to the program, which walks through project eligibility, schedules, all of those kinds of topics. It will also provide to you at the back of those kind of guidebooks a set of links to more information. We've gone through the available funding. That should be fairly close to what we talked about earlier. And again, all of these are reimbursement programs. The application process, you can see here, there's a link to more resources. This is kind of where you will find application resources such as the templates I mentioned when they're ready. There are also kind of, you know what, we'll just kind of click on that and we'll get over here. There are a whole host of things, as you can see here, ranging from the scoring criteria for STP and transportation alternatives. There's congestion management process information, clean air action plan. I would draw your attention to the green infrastructure framework as well. Mark's complete streets policy. You'll also find here at the end of this, we'll get posted to this website, this presentation, so that information will be available to you as well. That's kind of all the resources available to you, and they're considerable. There's also a listing of different federal and state resources as well. When you're in here, you can see that we have opened on August 3rd. We'll be closing on Friday, September 4th. Again, completion of both of these phases is required for funding consideration, and I would note, please use Chrome or Firefox browsers to access the application form. Some of the Microsoft browsers, for whatever reason, tend to have quite a few more issues than either Chrome or Firefox. To access, there's the map down here where you can see all kinds of information. You can turn all the layers on and off as you move through things. To get back to your applications, you simply click on this Go to Member Portal, and I'm going to log in here. And hopefully I remembered my password. Let me see here. Here we go. We'll take you over to kind of this page, and for those of you in Independence, don't be worried. This is we just used you. I needed an application to build kind of a test application off of, and so we've identified it as a testing application on 23rd Street, but we've stripped out all the information out of it. So from here, you can see the projects that you've submitted. If there are more than one, you'll have the list of all of them. You can see an alignment kind of category for you. This is coming out of the first step process, was this alignment. And then you can also see the status of your application. Most of you will see kind of in progress, but I have stepped through all of the pages in here, and so mine will now show complete, even if it's really not necessarily complete. It essentially means I've seen all the pages at this point. We can look at kind of the pre-application and what was submitted under that. You can kind of see that all of the answers that you had for that are there, as well as locational information on there. We can see comments related to it. These are all kind of test comments but you can see how that would show up. So there are comments from staff, comments from various committees on those, and if there are any comments from the committees about how you might improve your project, those are shown here as well. And then finally, we can go ahead and continue the application, and it comes in looking very much like it used to, but it also gives you kind of this pre-application review. So as noted, these are all these questions that say PA, those are pre-application questions, and you'll see information in here about all of those. Again, I've kind of taken out all the information, but these will all be pre-populated with the answers that you've provided. We do give you the opportunity to select your funding stream as well. And as you scroll through, then you get into the remainder of the questions that we've been traditionally asking over the past handful of years in this particular section. You'll need to step through all of these. Some of these will be required as you go through. If you've missed one that's required, it will not let you proceed. It will take you back to that question and ask you to complete that particular question. So you can see there's quite a few questions on here. As we step through, when you get to the bottom, you can save and return to your list of projects, or you can save and move on to the next section. Depending on the type of project that you selected, kind of in the first section, you will get kind of a set of questions that are related to our ability to calculate air quality impacts related to your project. And so for here, I'm using something that's taken me to outreach and other. And so I'll complete the relevant sections of this particular set of questions and move on by hitting save and next. And then I asked for STP funds, so I will get questions related to STP funds that are for a project that's classified as other. And so once you move through all of those questions, you again save and next. I also asked for transportation alternatives funds, so I will complete those sets of questions. You can see each of them are noted. Things that are more related to transportation alternatives have a T in front of them. STP, obviously the S, and the CMAQ questions are all titled with the sections that start with C. And then this particular category, which was environmental mitigation and vegetation management, I get another set of questions that's even more specific to just that particular set of projects. And then I move into the financial information. We've made a handful of changes to this particular page. We're looking for additional information about the breakdown of cost on each of these projects in terms of how much you're going to spend on engineering, equipment purchase, right of way, all of these kinds of things. This is just the total project. So we're looking at the total project budget. Here, some of these things are not necessarily eligible for reimbursement. So again, this is your total estimated project cost. We've provided what you submitted in the first phase as well, but the form will not calculate up to total that. So if you need to adjust it, please feel free to do so. And then because I have asked for STP and TAP funds, I am able to enter values in there as far as our federal amount that we're requesting. We do want these in whole dollars, so please fill out the whole number, not just in thousands. And we also do give you the ability to select which year of funding you are requesting for. We cannot guarantee that you will actually be able to receive those funds within the year that you've asked for, but we will do our best in order to get the funding available to you in the year that you've asked for it. We do have a number of projects that submit things on a regional basis and request funding from both states. If you are one of those projects, please do provide an additional spreadsheet that details the breakdown of the requests by state. And you can do that here in the next step when we get there. You can we also require you to identify the source of your local match, and also if you are receiving less funding than is requested, which is often the case, how can the project be phased? How will the project scope proposed in the application change in order to reflect the lower amount of funding received. And then also we do ask you to continue to break down the cost of your project by percent for each of these different categories. New this year, we're also asking you to kind of certify that you will have the amount of revenue available to complete this project. So we are asking that you provide a submittal to that. As just simply checking yes is that you are kind of certifying that your agency will have the appropriate amount of non-federal matching funds available at the time of obligation. If you say no, that you're not going to have that, you will have to kind of enter an explanation about why you've checked the boxes no in that particular case. And this would then complete your application. And so when you click done, it will take you to an opportunity to support the project through additional documentation. As mentioned before, if you're one of those regional projects, please do use one of these kind of slots to submit a spreadsheet that details your project cost breakdown by state and how much funding you're requesting from each of the states. But you can also use this to kind of upload maps if you feel they're relevant, letters of support from various places. If you have more than one, it's probably a good idea to try and combine those letters of support into a single file so that you have more ability to continue to upload documents. But this is the opportunity here where you would do that kind of thing. In the past, it's been generally letters of support, maps supporting things, perhaps a study that identified the project. All of those kinds of things are particularly relevant at this stage, and you may submit them as well through this ability to support documentation. And when you finish here, it'll take you back to kind of the initial stage of the member portal, and you should be complete with your application at that point. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, here is your report issue button, and I'm going to click on this so you can all see what it looks like. And it's just a quick survey form that asks you to fill out a variety of questions and provide a brief description of the question you might have, as well as kind of upload a screenshot and what internet browser you're using. When you hit done, again, that goes directly to our IT staff to help you out, help you through any issue you might have. So that's kind of where we are at this point. Again, not seeing anything in the chat box, but certainly if you do have questions, feel free to unmute or put something in the chat box and we'll happily try to address that question. If not, again, feel free to contact me offline and we can work with you on getting your questions answered or point you in the right direction to the appropriate resources. So, all right, looks like we have a question here. If the project is a follow-up to a PSP project or a Planning Sustainable Places project, should that be uploaded as documentation? You can feel free to do that. You can also feel free to just identify that the project is part of a PSP project. There is opportunity within the application to do so, but you are certainly welcome to do it in both places and make the connection to Planning Sustainable Places as strong as you possibly can make it. It looks like we have another question about the phase 1 application portion. How was it decided an application was not complete? I'm going to take a crack at this, but we do have Martin Riverola with us, and if he's still online, he can feel free to jump in and unmute himself and respond to this. But essentially, the incomplete is just that there was not enough information known about the particular project through the answers provided, whether or not the project complied with a certain policy or policies. And so that incomplete designation is simply kind of a notification to you that there's some additional information that's needed. That should be it should be known in the comments which ones we're talking about. And this is the opportunity where you can take your answers from the previous section and strengthen them a little bit or add to them, and we will reassess and see where things fall out. But that's kind of what the incomplete designation meant. And certainly if you have questions about, if you have an application that was kind of classified as incomplete, feel free to reach out to us and we will get you additional information about how that was decided and where to go, what steps you can take moving forward. So do feel free to reach out to us.
And Mark, this is Martin Riverola. I am here. You said it correctly. I don't have anything else to add unless anybody has any questions on that.
Okay. Another question: can you change or add to the programs in the submittal? Say you only asked for transportation alternatives in the initial application, but now would like to also apply for STP. You are welcome to change which funding streams you are applying for. Absolutely, you can apply for more funding streams if you feel it's appropriate. Some questions here. Anybody else with questions today? All right, seeing none. Again, we did record this today. We'll make this presentation available on the application website on the resources page that we showed earlier to you. So feel free to come back and refer to this if you need to. Again, my name is Mark Hansen at Mid-America Regional Council. Feel free to reach out to me and we'll get you going in the right direction. And certainly do our best to answer the questions you might have to the best of our ability to get your projects moving forward and get things evaluated properly. So good luck to everyone. Again, please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks everyone for attending today. Appreciate your time.